Welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today, hosted by Todd DeVoe, where planning meets reality.
Good morning, and hey, welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today. And today we're going to get into a little bit about what leadership is and, well, leading and what's traditional leaders versus a servant leader. And as people who are in the business continuity and emergency management space, we have to be leaders, right? And what I mean by this is that we have to really take what we're doing and be able to lead people through the process, to be able to lead people through to use our plan. And it's a process. So there's the conversation that has gone through a lot in emergency management is some of the positions are not leadership positions. What I mean by that is they don't have budgetary control. They don't necessarily have anybody who works for them. They sort of work in a vacuum, and they're sort of sometimes put in the corner. And are they truly leaders? And I'm going to say there are positional leaders, which means like the chief of police, chief of the fire department, and so forth and so on is a positional leader, and then there are functional leaders, in which I think where emergency managers sometimes will fall into that. So as we look ahead into the next century, leaders will be those who empower others, from Bill Gates. Before I really get into what the servant leadership is, let us explore the difference between the two leadership styles. And the reason why I bring up that quote from Bill Gates is we look ahead into the next century, leaders will be those who empower others. Emergency managers, our goal, and business continuity managers, our goal is to empower others to be able to continue to do their work in a time of crisis. So if we take a look at power, traditional leaders, our top-down leaders approach to power, where one sole authority, and traditional leaders believe that their power derives from the position of the authority, right? We just talked about, like the fire chief and so forth. Servant leaders, right? The new approach of servant leader recognizes that the power is most significant in putting people first. And as we go through our planning processes, we are putting people first. With an information, traditional leaders will maintain ownership of that information, hold it close to the vest. They'll let it know as a need to know basis, right? Because information in their life is key to power, to control. And the servant leaders were open with their information. We're sharing this information, share ideas. Collaboration is where that comes into play. And emergency managers and business continuity managers are very good at being the servant leader and open. Idea generation, right? The idea generation we talked about in the planning, right, is traditional leaders will put out the ideas, and this is what's going to be. They don't want to hear any conversation about it. Whereas servant leaders, where they go through, look for different ideas, go through the ideation process. Problem solving, traditional leaders are top down. This is what I do. This is what I say. Do it my way. Servant leaders are looking for collaborative problem solving solutions. Resource allocation. Traditional leaders approach the resource allocation is generally reactive. Resources are provided only when deemed necessary by the upper management, by the C-suite team, by that set. Where servant leaders are environmentally based on trust, and resources are given out proactively, leading forward, as I like to say, looking at the issues that are out there and solving those problems in the leaning forward and not a reactive way. Traditional leaders tend to be more reactive in this case. In most cases, traditional leaders are reactive, where servant leaders are more proactive and like a leaning forward. That's a term I like to use. You probably hear that a lot coming from me. Roles and responsibilities. Traditionally, corporate culture relies on a series of rules, regulations, a hierarchy that forces managers and team leaders to adhere to specific roles and responsibilities, and for both them and their teams, right? And this can stifle the creative process. And as a result, team members working in relative isolation as information resources are shared, like I said, as an as-needed basis. So they're left in the dark, and they might not have the resources that they need to complete their job. Where as a servant leader, The environment teams are encouraged to work together, collaboration between each other, breaking down those silos, right? Sometimes you might move into somebody else's lane for a little bit and have to move back into your lane, but you do that with permissions and with collaboration, not with taking over somebody else's job. So that's the idea of servant leaders, is really creating a collaborative, positive relationship and groups. And this gets into design thinking, right? And that problem solving process through design thinking. In resolving issues, traditional leaders, cultures that they often deal with the individual basis with no regard to the problem's cause, right? They're putting out those fires, always putting out fires, right? They're not leaning forward again. The servant leadership is based on trust, right? Because team members give more responsibility for their work, right? Leaders are sometimes less involved in the day-to-day nitty-gritty of what's going on in the decision-making process, allowing their teams and those individuals to make those decisions and work through those issues. And this means that if an issue arrives, it's dealt with swiftly. It's dealt with at the lowest level, right? And if you think about it in the military, as much top-down leadership that you see in the military, all issues are going to be dealt with the lowest level possible, right? If it's within the squad, it's within the squad. If it doesn't move out of there, that's the idea, is to do this. And that's the idea of the servant leader, swiftly dealing with issues, right? And servant leaders are looking for the cause of conflict as it arises and addresses that solution, addresses the issue, and give us solutions promptly and keep that ball moving forward. With performance and feedback, traditionally, most traditional corporations practice that semi-annual review process based on some parameters that are set in HR. It's very arbitrary. Nobody likes to do them. The leaders don't like to do them. The people receiving them, they feel it's a waste of time. HR uses it for other things, and it's not a feel good. And not saying it has to be feel good situations going on here, but it doesn't. No one likes it, right? Where the servant leader is always given feedback, whether positive or negative, fixing that problem at the base, right? Not waiting for it to grow into an issue where you have to do paperwork on people, right? Always constantly moving the ball forward, if you will, and growing together as a team. And this allows for the immediate feedback, whether it's praise or constructive criticism, and allows your team members to know where they sit and how they can do better, right? It's constant improvement. The servant leader is also offers the opportunity to share knowledge and educate the members on an ongoing basis, right? If you're in a leadership position as emergency manager, right, or as the business continuity manager, you're going to have information that others in the team won't have. And so you use this as an opportunity to educate them on the process and what this really means, looking up the rules and regulations and laws and why things happen, right, where other people on the team might not need to know that at the time, so they're not looking it up. And so gives you the opportunity to educate and improve that process as it goes. So as you transition from the traditional leadership style to servant leadership style, there might be some bumps on the road, right? But it's okay. You just keep moving forward in that aspect of it and really do continuous improvement on yourself as a leader. Ask for feedback. I think that's an important part of it as well. Asking for feedback from your team members to see what you could do better for them. As we move forward on these topics, I think it's really important to understand where we're coming from. So openness makes your process transparent. It shows you to be honest and trustworthy. And when you lack transparency, it doesn't really offer qualified reasons for this to occur. So your team and the community are left to dream up explanations on your behaviors. So be transparent. I want to focus on just a moment for one specific aspect of decision making and making decisions that that others won't like. For example, you might have to tell somebody that their project that they wanted needs to be scrapped or put on hold. Let them know the reasons for the decisions. For example, if you get some documents that come in for your business continuity plan or emergency operations plan, and it just doesn't work out, say, for instance, your pandemic plan or something like that, you explain to them why it needs to be scrapped and why it doesn't meet the qualifications that are needed specifically for the plan, and work with them, because I know they've put a lot of work into that and they're going to feel kind of burnt. So walk it through them. Don't just say, "Hey, this is not acceptable." Redo it from the beginning. Explain to them why, and walk through that reasoning and make it a learning time, not just a getting slapped on the hand. Well, anyway, everybody, we'll be talking more about this type of leadership decision making in the future. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And thank you for being with us today. And visit Titan HST for all your communication needs. And remember, follow us on your favorite podcast player, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And join us next week. And until then, stay safe, stay hydrated.